it's just an example. Purdue losing to Fresno State is okay. We can still win the Big Ten West. For me,
Billy Napier gets fired. I'm just kidding.
really the best time of the year. I will be seated watching the Red Zone for 7 hours on Sunday. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Backyard Banter. First of all, we're back. It's been a while. We had a nice long Thanksgiving. Some big things happened in some people's personal lives, which is incredibly, incredibly amazing. Tanner is too lame to join us. He's too distraught over Benedictine starting 1-6 to come on to the podcast. Just kidding. He's sick. He'll be on hopefully next time when we have a return of a pretty big guest. But James, it's been 10 days. How was your Thanksgiving? How are you?
Oh, good, man. It was a good break. I was able to kind of take the whole week off. As you mentioned, some big news. I'm engaged, so
Yes.
that's great. Kyra and I are really happy. But that was it's kind of crazy. Just graduated in May, and now I got a job, and now I got to. First of all, for all you guys listening, all 20 of you that'll watch this episode, pretty incredible how fast people want this thing to turn around. I mean, I get it on knee Friday. And next thing you know, people are like, "All right, so when's it happening?" And I'm like, "Dude, chill."
I'm people.
Right. I'm like, chill. Like, can we celebrate this moment? And
Nope. I was
not
expecting
at all.
an early May wedding.
Yeah, right. So was everyone else, bro. Not even a joke. So
I was joking. That's a little. But
so
hey,
but it was good. You got back home, so that must have been all right. Yeah.
Yeah, I went home the week before Thanksgiving. Coached up Jamie a little bit. I was in the Chicagoland area before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Day. I was here. Shout out Utah Jazz, Utah Hockey Club. But the game I worked for Utah Hockey Club, they won though, so it's okay.
That's fire.
It all evens out, but still a lot of fun. Not as fun as getting engaged and starting to plan a wedding though. But
good time.
As long as it's not a fall wedding, because we're going to talk about the college football playoff rankings, and some may say it's a travesty, but before we get into that, we're going to go chronologically here. Rivalry weekend felt like rivalry weekend for the first time in quite a while. Obviously you had the flag planting, which there's no like middle ground in here. People either hate it or they absolutely love it.
Right.
And most of the people that hate it had it happen to them. I don't really care about it. There's probably going to be fines eventually, like field storming in the SEC. But what was your take on rivalry weekend? Obviously, Notre Dame got a big win. I think the shock of the season was Ohio State losing to Michigan at home, and we'll get more into that too. But I mean, what was your one big takeaway?
Yeah, like you said, it was great. I mean, there were so many games that were just like when you look at this rivalry weekend. Ohio State, Michigan's obviously the one that speaks for itself. Now you got 6-5 Michigan rolling into Buckeye, and you're like, man, they're rolling, right? The Buckeyes are rolling. Michigan, they put up 50 the week before, so I said in a group chat I'm in, I'm like, Michigan might win this game as a joke. Yeah. Like Michigan had no right to win that football game, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about what the committee did and whatnot, but. And then to go back to the flag planting, that's college football. Grow up, right? I mean, I understand if there were a few players that were just like, man, don't do that. But for it to be ruined. I mean, first of all, Gus Johnson, you used to be my favorite guy ever. I hate you now. You were so soft. Gus Johnson needs to grow a pair. It's college football. These kids are 18, 19, 20 years old. Yeah, they're going to plant a flag after they beat the number 2 team in the country. That's going to happen.
Underdogs, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So, rival, that's a tough word for me. So I'm just going to say the weekend. The weekend was great. Obviously Notre Dame gets a big one. I was actually sitting in the car about to tell my grandparents about what happened. And so my dad and I were listening to it on the radio, and my brother was in the back watching it. And he was ahead somehow than the radio, which never happens. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, pick 6!" And my dad and I are like, "Dude, thanks. What?" So yeah, that was a big one for Notre Dame, and obviously we'll talk about them. But yeah, man, I think there's just some exciting games, exciting matchups. But the committee, man, it's a travesty what they've done with the sport. Truthfully, I mean, they've really divided everybody. They've made this thing, and we knew they would, but they've made this thing a branded playoff. Now, do I discredit them for that? No, considering my team's one of the biggest brands in college football, and I appreciate that side of it. But like, I just, and we'll get into it. They're gonna have to change some things because, like, when we look at this Big Ten championship, if you're Penn State, man, just lose this game. Like,
And you're the 5 seed.
yeah,
And you play the Big
lose
12
this
champion
game.
and then Boise State. You walk into the semifinals.
And I'm pretty sure, and I'm 90% sure they're a lock for that 5, unless Oregon just boat races them. And even then, I
even
agree.
still,
But
yeah.
but again, obviously as a Notre Dame fan, I'm hoping Oregon boat races them, and I hope Texas beats Georgia, and then therefore Notre Dame might have a case because why not? But at the same time, and we all knew this. We talked about this before the season started. We knew this 5 seed was going to be a walk, right? It's become more of a walk because of how bad the Big 12's been. And now you say, okay, as the 5 seed, I get to play the Big 12 champ, which probably going to be Arizona State, who's rolling, right? And then nice, you win that game at home, and then you play Boise State, possibly, who I think might lose to UNLV. So it's like, there's a lot of question marks in the air. But at the same time, our playoffs are 90% set, and I don't know. It's just a brand now. It's a money grab. It's a brand. The March Madness is not like this. Like, they'll put anybody in, they'll let anybody beat anybody, but college football is just like, all right, we need Alabama in there, which whatever. We knew a 9-3 SEC team was going to get in, and yes, are they probably the most deserving? Yeah, maybe. But I'm just upset. I don't know. I wasn't in love. I'm okay with the top 6. After that, I lose trust in the committee. So
Yeah, we're about to get to the committee rankings. I want to go back to the flag planting. There is an element to winning with class that I understand, and honestly, that I teach my kids that I coach, that there's an element to winning in class, when winning with class, when you're just I use that to them in the sense of when Florida and Notre Dame. I won't say Notre Dame because Notre Dame loses to MAC schools, but when Florida, but when a big time school loses to like an FCS school, they don't freak out. They go out there and handle their business. Like, so we were playing. I won't even name the school, but when I went home to coach, we won a game by over 50 points, and the kids on the bench were just doing some antics. So I had to tell them at halftime. I was like, "Look, that's not how we do things here. There's an element that you have to win with class, celebrate when you're in the locker room." But when it comes to rivalry weekend, and when it comes to Ohio State, Michigan, which is probably the biggest rivalry in all sports right now.
yeah,
And when it comes to Florida State, which I grew up with, and there's no more intense rivalry when that thing's at its peak, when Spurrier and Bowden were going at it. So a lot of it, especially in the Florida case, was retaliation, because Florida State ripped up parts of their field last year and took it as whatever. And no one, like who cares? That's what you do after a rivalry win. So do I love the flag planting? Not really. But does it bother me as much as other people? Not even a little bit.
no.
It all started with Baker Mayfield. That's part of what makes college sports what it is. It's the pageantry of it. This is part of the pageantry of it. So I get the disdain for it. I'm not one of those people. I mean, do I absolutely love it when George Gums planted the Florida flag and the Florida State's logo? Was I absolutely thrilled? Like, I didn't really care. Like, good for those guys. Like, it's a once in a lifetime moment for them. But a lot of people hated this take, but you don't want it to happen. Win the game, and they're 100% right. Ohio State, you don't want that to happen. Win the game,
Right.
but it shows what the logo means to these guys, because you got guys ripping out the Michigan flag, and that's the stuff that I like to see. That the logo still means something. But anyway, I have the rankings here, and I am going to pull them up. And can you see this, James?
Yes, sir. Yep.
So, like we talked about, there's nothing really wrong with the top 6. I would have penalized Ohio State significantly more.
Yeah.
We were gonna get in that game. I kind of want to get into it now. You cannot lose that game at home to a Michigan team that can legitimately not play offense. Their only touchdown came on Ohio State turnover inside the 10-yard line. You cannot lose that game. I get it's a rivalry game. I get all of what it means, but Ohio State is still the most talented team in the country. And Will Howard has got to figure some stuff out because he almost cost them the Penn State game. You could argue he cost them the Oregon game, and he was awful against Michigan. And then, but he's not even the biggest problem. The play calling from Chip Kelly was absolutely egregious. The one advantage that Michigan had in the game was on the offense-defensive line. Their defensive line has pro-ready guys. Mason Graham is going to be a top 15 pick. And Ohio State's offensive line is going through a major reshuffling right now because a bunch of people are hurt. And it's like tape work to try to put that thing together. And Chip Kelly was insistent on running the ball and insistent on not letting Will Howard make a mistake. You get a turnover inside the red zone when Caleb Downs picks off Davis Warren, and you run the ball 3 times, and then you miss a field goal. Yeah. Like, what are we doing? You honestly, you got like 6 future NFL receivers, but you at least got 2 future first rounders with Smith and Ibuka, and they did not get nearly involved enough. I don't know if you agree with that, James.
Yeah.
But,
when I look at the teams that are like on this list, and again, I have to remind myself a lot of the times that we are talking about kids our age, right? Yeah. And we can't say that now. Like I can say that even though I'm out of college, just because kids are 24, right? But like these kids, these players this year, I feel like, and maybe it's because there's a new landscape in college football, I feel like we're seeing the most inconsistent quarterback play at like the best schools. Because when I look at the top 10, right, and teams that I think can win a national championship, I go into quarterbacks. What quarterbacks have looked solid for mostly the whole season, right? Clear answer, Dylan Gabriel. Boom, yep. Oregon can win a natty, right? You look at Texas. They've been shaky at best, right? Same with Penn State. Notre Dame, Riley Leonard's been playing better, right? But that team will win a natty only if they can run the ball consistently, and Jeremiah Love plays well. Georgia, Beck has been so up and down, right? Like Howard, up and down. Nico, up and down. SMU, I'm not really sure who their quarterback is, but I know they can run. They had a quarterback
switch to begin with. The guy that started and lost their only game isn't their quarterback now.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, the guy that's coming now has been significantly better. He's been good this year, but still.
Yeah, it's inconsistent quarterback play, and I think when you're looking to pick and obviously we're not right now, but to pick a national champion pick, you need someone with how long this playoff can go. You can't falter a game because if you get into the playoff, we're going to talk about it. Obviously, you want to be that 5 seed to play a Big 12. Well, guess what? That Big 12 team can still beat you if your quarterback does not play because Michigan had no right to win that game. And they won that game from the start, from the jump. Like that team was just a better team that day. And you talked about you're upset that they're at 6, and I totally agree. When Georgia loses, they drop 9 spots.
Yep.
And then don't quote me on 9 spots, but it was up there, right? And then Ohio State loses to a 6-5 or whatever they were, Michigan team at home, and they drop 4 spots. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right at all. So obviously they should still be in the rankings, but 6 I think is way too high because why do they deserve a home game? Like, why? I don't know.
There's so much wrong with this, and it basically says, look, if you lose in the first 6 weeks of the season, it doesn't matter because we haven't done our rankings yet. And to be completely honest with you, I am absolutely positive that no one in that committee watched football at an intensive level that first 6 weeks.
Right.
And it just utterly blows my mind because they could have done what Oregon did. And I think every team should do what Oregon did. Oregon lines up 3 crappy teams to start the year. I don't care if they play Boise State. It does not matter. There's no comparison there. And they don't look good. But they come out of it, and they're 3-0 because they're playing crappy teams. Florida has a gauntlet the first 4 games, and they come out of it 1-3 or whatever they were. Right. 1-2. And boom, their season's over basically at that point, despite how Florida has looked like a top 15 in the last 4 weeks. And we'll get into that later. Yep. But my beef with the committee is that I don't think that they're doing the college football fans that are really into it, like me and you are, James, and the millions of other people are, justice because I don't think they watch the games the first 6 weeks. And now it basically saying the first 6 weeks don't matter. If you lose a game, it doesn't matter as much as if you lose a game down the line. I think if Miami would have lost to Syracuse in week 6 and then blew everyone else out since then, they'd be in right now.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing, James, the name brand. Miami's one of the biggest brands in the sport still.
Yeah.
And that's why they're nowhere near Alabama, but that's why I thought they might, still be in. But let's talk about it. So here's the rankings. The top 12 get in, but Miami won't get in because the highest rated Big 12 team out of these two, whoever wins this, will take that 12th spot. So Miami loses to Syracuse. The one reason why I will give the committee credit for putting a 3-loss SEC team in over a 2-loss ACC team is because the schedules are not comparable.
Right.
Alabama's losses are really bad, but when you play, sorry, my mom's calling me. Love you, Mom. I'll call you after this. When you do when you play an SEC schedule, it's just simply not comparable. My beef is I think Ole Miss should be ahead of Alabama. They both beat Georgia, and Ole Miss has better losses. When you go on the road and lose to Vanderbilt, I don't want to say that's a road game. That stadium was 60% Alabama, and they can't even hold a full capacity because they're still doing freaking construction. That's not a road game. And then you get blown out on the road by 6-6 Oklahoma team. Ole Miss losses, they go to Florida. Florida's a really good team right now. And frankly, Ole Miss was a better team. They just went like over $1 million in the red zone. And that's on coaching. They go to LSU and never trail and lose in overtime on the last play.
Crazy.
That is what it is. Their one bad loss, they lost at home to Kentucky. Kentucky's got 4 NFL guys on their D line. That's a real thing. But that's one bad loss. Alabama has 2 of them. I think Ole Miss should be over Alabama. But it's tough. They were basically going to say, in a normal world, if Ole Miss doesn't lose, and we'll just use South Carolina in this case. If South Carolina only had 2 losses, I think they would be above SMU and above Indiana.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
But that's kind of my spiel. I don't know how Georgia jumps up like 4 spots after going to 8 overtimes with Tech. And the rest you can't really complain with, but the one thing I will give the committee credit for again is valuing the SEC schedule. You can say that's SEC bias. I would say that the SEC has 12 of the top 35 teams in college football. So when you have to go on the road, how many conference games are there? 12. When you have to go on the road, or there's not 12 conference games. There's 8 or 9 conference games. When you have to go on the road 4 times in conference, that's a tough thing to try to do. So I do credit them for that. But I mean, I don't know. I think the 12-team playoff is stupid. I think the fact that we're even saying that a team that has 3 losses can still compete for the national championship is utterly ridiculous, and it completely devalues the sport because Ohio State and Michigan used to mean everything. And now Ohio State can still win a national championship after losing their biggest game of the year. And it just completely is watered down college football.
I mean, you would have thought that Ohio State, that was their first loss because of how high they stayed in the rankings. Yeah. Like, that's the other thing you have to look at. They're getting another home game. Like, most likely they're going to get another home game. And I understand that we have to protect because of what's happened in years past. We have to protect the idea of a Power 4 team. But Boise State does. Okay, maybe it's not even a hot take. Ashton Genty, however you pronounce his last name, is not going to be anything in the NFL because he's playing in the Mountain West, and I'm telling you right now. Obviously, I'm biased. You're biased on your team. I'm biased on my team. Jeremiah Love would be doing exactly what he's doing at Boise State right now. Every time I turn on the Boise State game and they're up 35 with 8 minutes to go and I'm watching him get carries because obviously they're trying to get him the Heisman. I respect. I just don't like that they're in a conversation. Obviously, they're more in a conversation. They're most likely going to get a top 4 seed and get a bye if they don't lose to UNLV, which then raised the question of then who gets in for that spot, which I'd be really interested to see what happens there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to watch a team like Boise State get a bye, and we're going to. I don't want to watch them get a bye and then get smoked by whoever else.
Because auto bids are the dumbest thing ever.
I agree. I totally agree.
The fact that there are auto bids
Yeah.
This is not March Madness. There's not 68 teams that 68 teams that make this. There should be no such thing as auto bids. You rank the 4 highest teams,
Yeah.
and you go from there. And I'll push back, James. Genty ran for like 200 yards against Oregon.
He is
you
good.
can say that he doesn't deserve
Yeah.
to be in the Heisman conversation because he plays in the Mountain West, but I still think he's a very good running back. And
he's a good back at this level,
and
and
a good pro.
And people brought up like he might just be one of those guys, which happens all the time that we've seen it. Like great college football players that it's hard. I'm not wishing down upon the guy, but I've never met him. He seems like a cool guy. But I don't know. I just feel like what he's done is very impressive, but he's doing it at the Mountain West level, right? And what even is that conference anymore? But anyway, I agree, and I didn't really think about that idea of let's just rank the top 4 teams than I did those last few weeks, because why are we doing auto bids? Like you said, like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any, if you want to give them a spot in the tournament, fine. But like let's not do auto bids, because then it hurts the SEC, right? Or if Ohio State was a 1-loss team, if they beat Michigan, like I just don't agree with it. And I think they have to change it, at least tweak it a little bit. I'm okay with 12 maybe, but you got to tweak it a little bit. But yeah,
here's your top 10, James, and it's interesting that they are going to tweak it, and we've talked about it. There's only a playoff system lined up. People don't know this for this year and next year, and then there's nothing. There's an abyss. So this is the experiment. It's the test dummy, and it's unfortunate because they're failing the experiment. I never thought they should have went to 12. If you wanted to expand, I would have gone to 8, because when has the 12th best team in the country ever? We said, man, they could have won national championship.
right.
Never. We've never said it. And look, the money that they're getting is absolutely outrageous from these extra games and whatnot. But it's watering down college football, and it is brutal to see. But anyway, here's your top 10, James.
Yeah, we'll start from the top. Obviously, Oregon, Texas at the 1 and 2. Obviously, I think a few rankings ago I had Notre Dame lower than the committee had them. Now I have them higher than the committee has them, simply because of this fact and just like thing. Penn State's best win is what? At USC. And Notre Dame did that, and it's not their best win, right? Their best win is at A&M. So I put Notre Dame above Penn State because the travesty, and I think maybe Johnny and I talked about this before, the travesty is Penn State getting the 5 seed, and I do not want to watch them in the quarterfinals, like semifinals maybe. I don't think Penn State's a very national champion caliber team. So we'll see. I hope Oregon absolutely boat races them and puts the committee in a spot, and again, it's a spot where they say, because I don't think they're going to hurt. But again, we don't know this, right? We're talking about people.
They shouldn't. They should not hurt you for playing in a conference championship.
We're talking about people who,
if SMU loses, they should not move from their position. If Penn State loses, they should just drop to 5, unless Texas also loses. Therefore, Texas should drop to 5. Penn State should drop to 6, and Notre Dame should drop to 7.
Yeah.
And there's no world where you should be not rewarded for playing for a conference championship.
Yeah, like I said, and I agree. Again, I hope we're wrong. I don't think we are, but I hope Oregon boat races them. I hope Texas beats Georgia. That way, Notre Dame has a shot at the 5, and at worst for the 6. The problem is the 6 is not very advantageous right now because the Tide come into South Bend as of right now. But
which would be so electric. We got to get through that game.
Oh my gosh, dude! But yeah, okay. So Georgia at 5 again. I was hoping they'd lose to Tech. Like, I'm sitting there. It was Friday night game, and like they're in 8 overtimes, and I'm like, what are we doing? Georgia Tech is just that team this year that just like they started off the year with a
Georgia
big
Tech's
win.
a good team, man.
Like Georgia Tech's a good team. Yeah, I mean, granted they beat a Florida State team that we thought that was a huge upset at the time.
They're a good team with Haynes King. He missed a lot of time. Yeah. And before you keep going, James, I want to say that the overtime rules in college football are utterly broken. The fact that we're deciding stuff on 2-point conversions, and not only we do 2-point conversions, then we got to switch to the field. So we got to wait 5 minutes while we go to commercial, and then each coach is going to call a timeout, and then we're going to go again. there's so many things wrong with college football. And then to add it to everything, you know what starts next year for the players, James? Revenue sharing starts next year for
Sure
the
it
players.
does.
So
Sure it
there's a
does.
lot of problems. All roster sizes are being cut down to 105, and we're gonna see how it goes. And the fact that we're not allowed to judge these kids now, they're our age and they're young, gets completely thrown out the window because now they're getting paid to do what they're doing.
Right.
So
We're
anyway,
Backyard Banter is gonna start being ruthless. I mean,
hey, it worked for DeAndre Swift.
that's true. That's fair. But yeah, that's fair enough. I will say when you look at like that Georgia ranking, we talked about it. I don't understand how they could possibly go up, but I mean, whatever, it is what it is. And that's why I have Tennessee above Ohio State. Right? That's simply because the fact is they lost to a not very good Michigan team at home. And they lost that game from the jump. Like that was just a game that Michigan controlled. So I put Tennessee at 6. Do I think Tennessee has a chance to do anything in the playoffs? Not really. I really don't. I think Tennessee is going to be a team in the SEC for years to come. That's going to be really exciting. I think they're going to get the traction, and obviously Nico is going to be a good talent, but we'll see. So we put Ohio State at 7, SMU at 8. South Carolina, I think, is playing the best football. One of the they're unreal right now. I mean, they really are.
That was
I'm
a
not.
great game, by the way.
It was,
South
and that's
Clemson,
another thing.
great
Like,
game.
and that was the great thing about the weekend. Like, we just had some great like college football games.
By the way, Clemson could win and still be in the playoff,
Right,
which would be
and I think
insane.
they could, and I think they will. I really
And
do.
I think that means Boise would be the 3 seed, and then Clemson.
Oh, dude, we need to stop talking about
Let
this
me double
now.
check to see where Clemson. No, so Clemson's underneath the Big 12
Yeah, they're way low. They're like
champion. So
18 or something.
if Clemson wins the ACC, the Boise would be the 4 seed. The Big 12 champion would be, or Boise would be the 3 seed. Big 12 champion would be the 4 seed, and Clemson would be the 12 seed. Just utterly broken. Sorry.
And you know what? You know what? I hope it happens.
Yeah.
You know why? Because it would show the committee that they're a bunch of losers and they don't know
it
what
means
they're
Alabama
doing.
would get knocked out.
Yeah, fair. So I will say in Utah, and I kind of lost my train of thought there, but you were talking about college football overtime rules. Football overtime rules suck, and the NFL too.
Yeah.
Like it's terrible. And so yeah, we put South Carolina at 9, Alabama at 10. South Carolina is just an inspiring team. I mean, you know, it's not a team. You look at that Alabama loss they had when they got the onside kick and had a chance to win that game. I mean, we're talking if South Carolina hypothetically wins that football game. I mean, they're up by Georgia, right in the rankings. I mean,
The thing is, the only reason why I push back is because if you rank a team above a team that they lost to, it deludes even more of them playing the games because they played the game and South Carolina lost. Are they playing better than Alabama right now? Yes.
That's why
But
that's my order. That's my order.
I understand it, but you gotta, and I'm happy the committee didn't do this. You have to value the wins. Like Ole Miss went into South Carolina and won by 35 or whatever it was. Like that win needs to be valued, and there's no world just because South Carolina is the hot team right now, and it goes even further back to my point that the last 6 weeks of the season matter more than the first 6 weeks of the season. Right. You know, and it is what it is. I'm going to be really interested to see what South Carolina does next year. Lenore Sellers is a stud, and you know him and DJ Lagway could be the 2 best quarterbacks in the SEC next year with Archman or whatever. Yeah. But I like your top 10 a lot, James. And I was able to watch Notre Dame. I watched the entire Notre Dame USC game. I watched a lot of Notre Dame this year, but not recently. The last 3 or 4 weeks. I think Notre Dame can beat anyone. But there's just something, and I understand Morrison got hurt, but their defense is missing something.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the reason, more than Riley Leonard's limitations, that they don't win a national championship. I don't know what it is. It just feels like they're missing something. You know, you never want to say take out the 2 pick sixes, but you know the 2 pick sixes happened in the red zone.
Right.
So I mean, those are if you don't do that, just say you just settle for field goals. That's a 20-point swing where you get 6 points and you take 14 off the board for Notre Dame. That was quick math right there, by the way.
That was. It's early too. It's early.
It is early. It's even earlier here in Salt Lake. But I have more confidence that Notre Dame can make a run than I did a month ago, and And I hope that they do get matched up with a big name team in the first weekend, because how electric would Alabama going to South Bend would be?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be just poetry.
I would prefer, a Boise State, but it's like it's totally okay because, like you said, talk about like every college football nerd would be at that game. Like,
Yeah.
and dude, I don't know. I'd have to probably sell everything I own to get to that game, but it's
Sell
like,
the apartment, live on the street in South
dude,
Bend for a
that
ticket.
game would be electric. I mean, oh, jeez, I'm just picturing it now, and it's most likely going to happen, right?
And
I
I hope it
mean,
snows too. We get a
oh, that's
gentle
that's the other thing.
snowfall as
I hope
as
it's
it's
I
come
hope
up
it's
south.
2 degrees. I hope it's snowing. Like I hope it plays in Notre Dame's favor. But just briefly to talk about Notre Dame, and the loss to Morrison was huge,
Yeah.
and you can see it, right? Notre Dame, I feel like gives up. I'm not saying a big shot, like a 30-yard pass, probably every other drive, and that's against teams that aren't that great, right? And that is the truth. But in USC, like that game was not sweat free for Notre Dame fans. Like
No, it was
that
not.
that first pick six, they were down a touchdown in the red zone. Like it was it was close. And then it was funny. I think their quarterback, and I don't remember his name because he's new, but he had more passing yards than Riley Leonard did to Notre Dame players because he threw a 100-yard pick six and a 99-yard pick six, and Riley Leonard threw for like 160. So, but again, my question for Notre Dame: can Jeremiah Love be healthy? He was a little banged up at USC.
He's a stud though.
He is a
He's a
stud.
stud.
And Notre Dame for these last few years, Notre Dame's traditionally known for producing, you know, offensive linemen in the NFL and producing, safeties and corners and whatnot. But the running back room that Notre Dame's kind of been producing these last few years, you look at Kyron Williams, he's been a stud so far. Audric Estime will get a look for Denver at some point because whatever his name, Javon something sucks, Williams, whatever his name is. And so like Jeremiah Love is a flat out stud, and so much fun to watch. So yeah, I do agree. The missing pieces, I don't know either. I feel like we have a great defensive line that can get home against anybody. I feel like the linebacking core is solid. Maybe that might be the issue. I don't know, but it feels like we're giving up a few deep shots a game, and it's like, okay, you do that against Alabama, they might not let you back in. And I think Riley Leonard has been playing better. If we can get the Riley Leonard from like week 6 to week 11, then I think we can beat anybody. Um, but that's the question, and then I raised it earlier. The inconsistent quarterback play is going to hurt several teams in the next few weeks, and the question is, I hope it's not Notre Dame. But man, I'm ready for playoff football because it's exciting. The Bears obviously suck, so let me get something right.
Yeah. This is a full week even going to the NFL. The Bucks suck too, but they
Yeah,
somehow
man.
won. But I quickly want to talk about Florida, but just quickly because there's going to be a lot of Florida talk in the next episode. The turnaround that Florida's had this year is unlike anything that we've ever seen, really, strictly because of how impossible their schedule was. And James, we talked about it a lot before the year.
Yeah.
We looked when we made our friendly bet, and we looked at the last 5 weeks of the season. I said to you, Florida needs to get 5 wins, and they need to go 2-1 against Miami and Texas A&M to do it because they might not win a game the last week of the season.
Yeah.
And they end up finishing 3-0 in the last week of the season. And if DJ Lightwood doesn't get hurt, they beat Georgia.
Right.
And then he's out against Texas. That game was never competitive to begin with. But what Billy Napier was able to do, and you know how much I love Billy Napier the person. He's crying in the post game interview because you can just tell what it means to him.
Right.
And the guys love him, and they're playing their butts off for him. And that's just stuff that you love to see. But his coaching malpractice happening against Tennessee, I said right then and there they need to fire him. I didn't say it after Miami. I didn't say it after Texas A&M. I said it after Tennessee when his play calling and his time management cost him the game.
Mm-hmm.
But the improvements they've made since that first bye week and the second bye week, and then the turnaround that they have made in recruiting, they've picked up 11 recruits. They're outside the top 50, and they're going to end up with a top 10 class. I mean, that is just really, really good, obviously. And then beating Ole Miss was the most surprising one. I thought LSU was going to be the Super Bowl. They literally held guys out of the Texas game to get them healthy for the LSU game. And then they go out and beat Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, and I still think Ole Miss is the second best team in the SEC, even though they're ranked the fourth best team. I've just been really high on Ole Miss. But like I said, I don't want to go into it too much, but I did want to highlight in this episode that Florida is going to be a very dangerous team next year. And their schedule is still very hard. The schedule just flips. So now you go to A&M, you go to LSU, you go to Ole Miss. You still got Georgia on the neutral site. But then you got Texas coming to the Swamp. How electric is Arch Manning versus DJ Lagway in the Swamp going to be?
Maybe. Is Arch Manning even going to be any good?
Yeah, he is. It's going to feed families.
Correct. Yeah.
And so, I just want to point that out there. But we're recording an episode tomorrow that we're getting more into the Gators and really more into college football. So we're not going anywhere on the college football front. NFL is awful for me right now. I just don't even want to. I'm just kidding. But the Bears fired Matty Eberflus. That is a step.
And they finally did it at a point where, I see all these because I got too many Packer friends. Honestly, I'm going to start cutting them off. But I got so many Packer fans that send me this.
You know what? They don't get an invite to the wedding.
They don't. They flat out don't. Or they get their own table and it's like by the trash or something. But no, it's like I get this cycle, and we've all seen the wheel of quarterback, how the Bears do things with quarterbacks, and they fire their coach. Well, the wheel is different now because we fired him before the season was over. So now you can actually kind of do it right? You can kind of go into it the right way. Here's my issue with the Bears right now. Kevin Warren is a moron, and that guy is in charge of way too much. President of operations, whatever his name is. I don't care. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him. My mom always used to teach me to never use that word because it's not kind. Well, you know what? He deserves it, right? He deserves it. And watching him on the podium, I just want to watch Ryan Poles, because if you're going to tell me that Ryan Poles is just going to be our guy, then whatever. Let him have the conversation, all right? Or put George on the stand. Put George McCaskey on the stand, make him answer. So my dilemma with the Bears is if they go out and hire a defensive-minded head coach, I am going to be joining the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't even care.
We'd love to have you. There's one guy they got to go get. There's one guy. It's Ben Johnson.
I totally agree. He's the best mind. He's the best mind in football.
And will he go in division? I don't know, but that's the guy. Anything other than him, I think, is a failure for the Bears.
I agree.
I mean, he is the guy. The Bears, they got to shore up the interior of the offensive line, and they probably need to get one or two more pieces on defense. I think they need another pass rusher, and you could argue defensive tackle, maybe another linebacker. Yeah. But I mean, they're ready to compete. They're ready to go.
Next year,
they just need. It shouldn't be. Let's see if they re-sign Keenan Allen and stuff, but.
I don't even care. Let him go. But Caleb's looked really good, man. And if you're a Bears fan, and you have to be excited. And so the question is, if we go get Johnson, you're gonna hear, Johnny. You're gonna hear the worst thing ever. You're gonna hear Bears fans saying again how we're gonna win a Super Bowl, right? And it's like
Tanner said last.
Well, and we still might, right? And we might still say that no matter what happens. But there's in my mind, right? And please tell me if I'm wrong. And there's no chance we hire a defensive-minded head coach, right?
You never know. You would think that you wouldn't, but
who knows? I don't know. I want a younger guy. I do want a younger guy, and I think that's clearly why Johnson's the number one pick. I don't care what we got to pay him. Pay him. The Bears suck, and they still sell out, and they're $130 tickets when it's 20 degrees out, so they can kiss my booty. So
they can. But anyway, we'll wrap it there. Subscribe. If you subscribe, you get an invitation to James' wedding. Only in this video. If you made it to the end and you subscribe, you get an invite to James's wedding. So
there we go.
I think you'll be safe.
I think I'm very safe. But I mean, who knows? If we see a large spike, then
we know what happened.
Then we're in trouble.
We are going to have 2 episodes this week. We'll be back on Friday with an episode. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.